You're watching the 3-6 Mafia story. Sit back and relax. 3-6 Mafia is a hardcore and horrorcore rap group from Memphis, Tennessee. The group was formed in 1991 by DJ Paul, Juicy J and Lord Infamous. Other members were Coops Danica, Crunchy Black and Gangsta Boo. After releasing 9 albums and selling over 5 million records and even winning an Oscar award, the group is now known as one of the greatest rap groups in hip-hop history. They inspired artists such as Yo Gotti, the Migos and Gucci Mane. The group is even responsible for the birth of crunk music. In this documentary, we dig deep into 3-6 Mafia's life and career. The drugs, the violence, the beef. This is their story. Jordan Michael Houston III was born on April 5, 1975, in Memphis, Tennessee. His father Jordan Houston Jr. was a traveling minister, and his mother Shirley was a librarian and substitute teacher. Jordan grew up with his sisters Carol and Cheryl and his older brother Patrick. The family lived in Fraser housing projects. Back then, the projects was filled with drug dealers, pimps, hookers and stick-up kids. When Jordan was 8 years old, the Shannon Street Massacre took place blocks away from Fraser projects. A religious cult led by a guy named Lindbergh Sanders, also known as Black Jesus, and his 6 disciples had a standoff with Memphis police officers. On January 11, 1983, officers Bobby Hester and Ray Schwill were called to a house on Shannon Street to investigate a purse snatching incident. When the officers had arrived at the house, Sanders and 13 of his followers were having a meeting. 7 of Sanders' followers broke and ran. Hester and Schwill were attacked by Sanders and 6 of his followers. Schwill was shot in the face and Hester was taken hostage. Within minutes, the house was surrounded by police. A shootout took place for several minutes. Another officer by the name of William Aiken was shot in the head when he entered the house. The police were forced to try to negotiate with Sanders. After 30 hours of negotiations, the SWAT team decided to raid the house. Another shootout took place, and Sanders and his 6 followers were killed. The body of Hester was found beaten and stabbed to death. The Shannon Street Massacre was a big deal in Memphis. People would go on to talk about the massacre for decades. Jordan began playing the piano and drums at the church when he was only 12 years old. His love for music made him a huge Prince and Michael Jackson fan. In the beginning, he had dreams of being a singer and piano player. But by the time he was 15 years old, Jordan was scratching on turntables in his bedroom. Jazzy Jeff. A young Jordan studied DJ Jazzy Jeff. At the time, it was his favorite DJ. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince made Jordan a huge hip-hop fan. Unlike his older brother Patrick, Jordan wasn't running the streets. While he was in his bedroom scratching on turntables, Patrick was hanging out in the projects getting into trouble. After witnessing multiple murders, Jordan realized that the streets was only a trap for young black men. He didn't even like hanging out with his brother Patrick because Patrick was deep in the streets. By 1990, Patrick was well known in Cypress Gardens. He was given the nickname Project Pat due to him always being outside in the projects. Not only was Pat dealing drugs, but he was also robbing and shooting people as well. One time, him and a close friend shot down an older drug dealer in the neighborhood after the drug dealer had overcharged them for 8 ball of crack cocaine. The drug dealer was shot in the face and body multiple times, but managed to survive. This started a small war in the neighborhood. Back then, Cypress Gardens was a very dangerous housing projects. Bodies were dropping every other day. People were getting killed at their front door. Outsiders were afraid to come to Cypress Gardens. At the time, crack cocaine was the #1 moneymaker in the neighborhood. Dealers were making thousands of dollars a day in the projects. Pat hung out with other dealers and robbers. Some of his close friends were even killers. The 15-year-old Jordan now had dreams of being in the music industry. Although his parents didn't want him in the music industry, his mother Shirley began bringing him home books about the music industry so he could learn about the business. His father was barely home due to him being a traveling minister. This gave both Jordan and Pat even more freedom to roam the streets. Jordan would eventually join his older brother Pat in the drug game and even began getting in shootouts. Toting guns became normal to the teenager. One time, Jordan shot at some people who were trying to rob him and his friends. Riding in stolen cars was an everyday thing for Jordan and his crew. Around this time, Jordan began rapping with a friend. He began going by the name The Notorious Juicy J and later went by DJ Juicy J. Juicy J began DJing at local parties and later DJ'd for Memphis duo 8-Ball and MJG. Juicy J learned a lot from the duo. 8-Ball and MJG came onto the hip-hop scene in 1991 with their underground album Listen to the Lyrics. They became the biggest rappers in Memphis, Tennessee, after signing a record deal with Houston, Texas-based Suave House Records. This inspired a 16-year-old Juicy J to rap even more. He began dropping mixtapes, and one of the first songs he made was called Criminal's Own. After dropping a series of mixtapes, Juicy J was ready to improve his music quality. He heard a few songs from a rap duo from the south side of Memphis who went by the name The Serial Killers. The Serial Killers' music sounded much better than Juicy J's. This is when Juicy J meets DJ Paul and his nephew Lord Infamous. Paul Beauregard, born on October 13, 1977 in Memphis, Tennessee. He grew up on the south side. His father owned a pest control company and the family lived on Elvis Presley's old block. Paul's older sister had a son named Ricky Doonigan, later known as Lord Infamous, who was 4 years older than Paul. Ricky and Paul were more like brothers than nephew and uncle. The two grew up under the same roof. Although Paul was born with a deformed arm, he still had dreams of being a DJ. When he was only 11 years old, he began DJing at a Memphis nightclub. He could also play a piano as well. Him and Ricky were both huge horror movie fans. They would often stay up all night watching movies such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. The two would eventually start rapping and form a duo by the name of the Serial Killers. The Serial Killers became popular on the south side of Memphis. Paul and Ricky were now known as DJ Paul and Lord Infamous. Lord Infamous was one of the best rappers on the south side. Not only was he lyrical to many people, his style and sound were original. DJ Paul made scary beats to go with their dark sound. The duo began making mixtapes and selling them in the neighborhood and at school. DJ Paul and Lord Infamous come from a gangster family. They weren't strangers to violence and drugs. Gangbanging was huge in Memphis back then. There were Bloods, Crips and gangster disciples everywhere in the city. Both DJ Paul and Lord Infamous were gangster disciples. Lord Infamous made a name for himself at an early age. DJ Paul's half-brother Craig Petty's, also known as Lil C, was a well-known drug dealer in Memphis. Lil C grew up in the Riverside neighborhood. He began dealing crack cocaine in the late 80s. Lil C was one of the youngest drug dealers in his neighborhood. But we'll get back to Lil C's story later in the documentary. The Serial Killers took over the underground rap scene in South Memphis. Their sinister style was inspired by a local rapper and DJ who went by the name DJ Spanish Fly. DJ Spanish Fly is known as the godfather of Memphis rap. In 1987 he released the underground hit Gangster Walk. Gangster Walk became one of the biggest songs in Memphis, Tennessee. DJ Spanish Fly rapped hardcore lyrics over dark slow beats with heavy bass. This gave Memphis a signature sound. DJ Paul and Lord Infamous were making decent money selling their underground mixtapes. Meanwhile in North Memphis, Juicy J was making similar music. In 1991, a mutual friend introduced Juicy J to DJ Paul. Juicy J came over to DJ Paul's house in the south side of Memphis. At the time, the north side and the south side were feuding with each other. DJ Paul showed Juicy J his expensive recording equipment and gave him a few producing tips. The two instantly began working on music together. They would eventually form a rap group along with Lord Infamous by the name of the Backyard Posse. Juicy J and DJ Paul quickly became good friends. The two began hanging out every day. DJ Paul and Lord Infamous continued dropping music as the Serial Killers, and Juicy J continued dropping solo mixtapes. Around this time his underground song Slob on My Knob was becoming a local hit. While recording music for the Backyard Posse mixtape, Lord Infamous called his crew 666 Mafia in a rhyme. The name caught both Juicy J and DJ Paul's attention and would later become the group's name. By 1994, Juicy J, DJ Paul and Lord Infamous were inseparable. The three wasn't only making music together, they were running the streets together as well. DJ Paul and Lord Infamous were a lot wilder than Juicy J was. The uncle and nephew would often start fights for no reason. Sometimes even argue and fight with each other. Many thought that they were brothers. Both DJ Paul and Lord Infamous abused cocaine at the time. Juicy J chose not to use the drug. In 1986, basketball star Len Bias was drafted second overall to the Boston Celtics. 2 days later, the 22-year-old died from a cocaine overdose. That made Juicy J not want to use cocaine. In 1994, Juicy J drops Volume 10, Chronicles of the Juice Man. The mixtape was Juicy J's best work at the time. That same year, a 19-year-old who went by the name Koopstanika joined the group and they became 666 Mafia. Robert Phillips, also known as Koopstanika, was born on April 27, 1975 in Memphis, Tennessee. Koopstanika's childhood was rough. He seen a lot of violence growing up and was even abused by his stepfather. After losing his mother when he was 12 years old, Koopstanika was forced to live in foster homes. He would often run away from the foster homes and live homeless in the streets with no food or money. The 15-year-old was eventually captured and sent to a boys' home in Knoxville. Years later, Koopstanika, who was now rapping, moved back to Memphis and contacted DJ Paul. The two had met back in high school but didn't like each other at the time. Koopstanika went to 4 different high schools because he couldn't stay out of trouble. He even attended Northside where he met Juicy J. DJ Paul and Koopsta became close. In the beginning, 666 Mafia had close to 20 members in the group. Other local up-and-coming rappers joined 666 Mafia. People such as Lil Fly, K9, Gangsta Black, SOG, 211 and several other rappers came along and helped record the classic underground tape, Smoked Out Lookout. The whole LP was produced and arranged by both DJ Paul and Juicy J. Smoke Out Lookout was huge in Memphis. Around this time, Crunchy Black and a 14-year-old Gangsta Boo were around. At the time, Gangsta Boo was too young to join the satanic group. To Juicy J, the whole devil worship thing was a gimmick to sell more records. But to the other members, it was the way of life. Witchcraft and devil worshipping was common in Tennessee. Members of the group really hated God. According to Koopstanika, he hated God ever since his mother died. Many believe that DJ Paul was mad at God because he was born with a deformed arm. According to insiders, Lord Infamous was always evil. Even as a child. Each member were bitter about something that went wrong in their lives. The group took devil worshipping serious. They read satanic Bibles and even joined satanic churches. DJ Paul admitted that they even put spells on people through their music. Many people don't know that Lucifer is the god of music. Even before getting kicked out of heaven, he used his beautiful sounding music to pull other angels away from God. To this day, music is still one of his biggest weapons. Members of 666 Mafia understood this, so they began using chants to hypnotize listeners. Not only did they worship the devil, but some members also even claimed that they sold their soul. Darnell Carlton, also known as Crunchy Black, was born on August 20, 1974, in Indianapolis. His mother gave birth to him inside a state penitentiary. While his mother was serving time, Crunchy Black went to live with his grandmother in Memphis. After losing his grandmother when he was 9 years old, he moved in with his aunt. Crunchy Black didn't meet his father until he was 14 years old. At an early age, Crunchy Black fell in love with dancing. His older brother was a very good dancer and would often teach Crunchy Black dance moves. Crunchy Black started rapping in high school and even rap battled other students. He began dealing drugs when he joined a crew who went by the name the 8 Ball Posse. The crew were known for selling 8 balls of crack cocaine, which is 3.5 grams. Crunchy Black would eventually join a dance crew who were popular for doing the G-Walk at parties. The G-Walk, originally known as the Gangster Walk, was huge in Memphis. Crunchy Black and his dance crew were backup dancers for local rappers such as Al Capone and S&K. Around this time, Crunchy Black and his then-girlfriend wore matching outfits. Just like Lord Infamous, DJ Paul and most of the other 666 Mafia members, Crunchy Black was a gangster disciple. Months after meeting DJ Paul at a nightclub, Crunchy Black runs into DJ Paul once again at a gangster disciple meeting in the Whitehaven neighborhood. Crunchy Black immediately became a part of the 666 Mafia crew. Although Crunchy Black danced around and acted silly, he was allegedly putting in a lot of work in the streets. The 19-year-old dancer was known for having a lot of guns. According to Juicy J, Crunchy Black was really wild. Sometimes he would even shoot for no reason. Since a teenager, drugs been a huge part of his life. In 1995, the group decided to change their name. Instead of 666 Mafia, they went by 3 6 Mafia to gain more fans. Not many hip-hop fans were interested in devil worship music. Many people didn't have a clue what the name 3 6 Mafia meant. Juicy J, DJ Paul, Lord Infamous, Koopstanika, Crunchy Black and 15-year-old Gangsta Boo. Lola Mitchell, also known as Gangsta Boo, was born August 2, 1979 in Memphis, Tennessee. She grew up in the Whitehaven neighborhood. After her parents' divorce, Gangsta Boo and her siblings moved to King Gates housing projects with their mother. She started rapping at the age 14. After becoming a member of 3 6 Mafia, Gangsta Boo purchased a satanic Bible to learn more about Lucifer. Her mother kicked her out after finding the evil book in her bedroom. Gangsta Boo returned home days later and was forced to throw the book away. DJ Paul took devil worshipping very seriously. 3 6 Mafia members often hung out at a place they called the Honeycomb Hideout. At the Honeycomb Hideout, group members did drugs and practiced witchcraft. DJ Paul was pretty much a cult leader. Even Juicy J began practicing black magic with DJ Paul. DJ Paul and Juicy J hooked up with a big-time drug dealer from Memphis by the name of Nick Scarfo and started a record label called Prophet Entertainment. Nick was a silent partner who only provided funds. DJ Paul and Juicy J handled all of the creative work. 3 6 Mafia immediately began working on their debut album, Mystic Styles. The album was recorded at the Production Room studio in Memphis. DJ Paul and Juicy J handled all of the production. Every member of the group except for Juicy J was using a lot of cocaine at this time. DJ Paul and other members were staying up for days straight getting high and making music. The group enjoyed rapping about violence, sex, drugs and the devil. That energy followed them outside the studio. Members were getting into shootouts, shooting up nightclubs and even allegedly dealing drugs. Like I said earlier, DJ Paul's family were gangsters. Now let's get back to his brother Craig Petty's story. By the mid-90s, Craig was the biggest drug dealer in his neighborhood, and he was also now a leader of the whole Memphis Gangster Disciple organization. Due to him being connected with the Mexican drug cartel, he began running the largest and most violent drug operation in Tennessee. Back on the north side, Project Pat was still hanging out in Cypress Gardens. He was now rapping but wasn't taking it seriously. One day after smoking angel dust with a friend, Project Pat and his friend decides to rob some people at a shopping mall. Both him and his friend were later arrested and charged with aggravated robbery. Project Pat was now facing 30 years in prison, but was only sentenced to 8 years. Juicy J sold both his and Project Pat's cars to help pay for studio time to record the Mystic Styles album. By the beginning of '95, the album was completed and released on May 30th of that year by Prophet Entertainment. Mystic Styles was a dark album. Local radio stations refused to play 3 6 Mafia's music in the beginning, so the album was basically underground. Around this time, the group began feuding with a rap group from Ohio. Bone Thugs and Harmony had just finished up their second album, E1999 Eternal. 3 6 Mafia accused the group of stealing their rapping styles and even recorded a diss track called Live By Your Rep. In the beginning, many people believed that Bone Thugs and Harmony was a devil-worshipping rap group. Their horrorcore music sounded similar to 3 6 Mafia's. Mystic Styles opened the door for 3 6 Mafia. Cash began pouring in. They quickly became kings of the Memphis underground scene. Their mixtapes began selling through the roof. Juicy J, DJ Paul and Lord Infamous all purchased homes. Koopstanika went to live with DJ Paul. DJ Paul moved into his brother's house after his brother had gone to prison. According to DJ Paul, the house became a hangout spot. There was a party every night. Koopstanika would often cook chitterlings for everyone. The crew would stay up for days at a time getting high and making music. They were using over an ounce of cocaine a day. The lean and alcohol only added fuel to the fire. Around this time, members were even using heroin and prescription pills. Juicy J didn't like hanging out with the other members due to them being high. At the time, Juicy J only smoked weed and drank alcohol and lean. Members of the group would often argue and fight with each other when they were high. Gangsta Boo and DJ Paul didn't really get along. The two stayed getting into heated arguments. During the making of the Mystic Styles album, Juicy J contacted a 15-year-old LaChat to get on his song. Chastity Daniels, also known as LaChat, grew up in South Memphis. After dropping out of high school in the 10th grade, Lichat got married to an 18-year-old thug from her neighborhood. Lichat didn't hang out much with the 3 6 Mafia members in the beginning, she spent most of her time with her husband in the streets. She didn't even appear on 3 6 Mafia's second album, Chapter 1, The End. In December of 1996, Chapter 1, The End was released and peaked 126 on the US Billboard 200. 3 6 Mafia took over the Memphis rap scene. Profit Entertainment was making millions of dollars. Not only were they releasing 3 6 Mafia albums, but the independent label was also releasing underground albums from Koopstanika, Lord Infamous and several other artists. Paul and Juicy's silent partner Nick began getting greedy. He now wanted to own a bigger percentage of the label. Nick would end up suing DJ Paul and Juicy J and also making them change the label's name. This is when they started Hypnotized Minds. DJ Paul and Juicy J landed a deal with Relativity and immediately began working on the Chapter 2, World Domination album. Hypnotized Minds was now the home of 3 6 Mafia. The group became very powerful in Memphis. Not only were they the top rappers in the city, but they were also running the streets. Members were allegedly still dealing drugs and putting in work. Disrespecting 3 6 Mafia back then was dangerous. People were jumped on and even shot for disrespecting the group. They became feared in Memphis. Members of the group were still shooting people and shooting up parties. Crunchy Black even allegedly blew up people's vehicles for dissing the group. 3 6 Mafia weren't an ordinary rap group. Members such as Lord Infamous, Crunchy Black and Koopstanika were allegedly killers. One night while dropping off Gangsta Boo, Koopstanika gets into it with some guys from Gangsta Boo's projects. A few people even pulled out guns. Koopstanika rushes to DJ Paul's house to tell the other 3 6 Mafia members what had happened. Minutes later, members of the group drove back to the projects and shot it up. Crunchy Black didn't mind putting in work, especially for 3 6 Mafia. Every other day he was fighting and shooting. Him and Lord Infamous were very close. The two would often put in work together. On November 4, 1997, 3 6 Mafia's third studio album Chapter 2 World Domination was released and peaked at number 40 on the US Billboard 200 and 18 on the US Top R&B Hip Hop Albums Billboard. Chapter 2 World Domination sold over 800,000 copies. 3 6 Mafia became the biggest rap group in Tennessee. Chapter 2 World Domination was released by Hypnotized Minds and Relativity Records. Tear the Club Up 97 was the album's biggest single. The song made people at the club fight and throw chairs. The single peaked at number 70 on the US Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs. The group continued working. They were now getting booked for many shows. Gangsta Boo was now becoming a problem to the group. The 19-year-old began thinking that she was the star of the group. She would often miss shows and complain. According to Juicy J, Gangsta Boo wanted to be like rapper Lil' Kim. She rode around in limousines and stayed at expensive hotels. Gangsta Boo became very cocky and hard to work with. Her album was up next. On September 29, 1998, Inquiring Minds was released and peaked 46 on the US Billboard. Both DJ Paul and Juicy J stayed in the studio. Juicy J would come every morning at 7 o'clock and stay until 5 p.m. DJ Paul would come every day at 5 p.m. and stay all night. Juicy J was a true businessman. He kept everything at Hypnotized Minds organized. DJ Paul and Juicy J were now both millionaires. Other members of 3 6 Mafia became jealous of the two. The group was no longer getting along. They even began dissing each other on wax. According to Juicy J, cocaine had ruined the group. It became hard for the group to work together. Juicy J had to keep a gun on him in the studio because he didn't trust other members of the group. Things just wasn't the same. Crunchy Black stayed going back and forth to jail. For some reason he couldn't stay out of trouble. Juicy J and DJ Paul would eventually stop bailing him out of jail. Around this time, Project Pat was released from prison and began working on his debut album, Getty Green. The streets related to Project Pat more than they did 3 6 Mafia. He didn't rap about devil worshipping. His rhymes felt more real and down to earth. And his style was unique and new. On September 14, 1999, Getty Green was released and peaked at number 52 on the US Billboard and number 9 on the US Top R&B Hip Hop Albums Billboard chart. The album's first single was Bowlers, produced by Manny Fresh. Getty Green received good reviews and is now considered a down south classic. After the release of Getty Green, 3 6 Mafia began working on their fourth studio album, When the Smoke Clears, 6661. The album was released in the summer of 2000 and sold over 1 million copies. This became Three Six Mafia's first platinum album. Who Run It and Sipping on Syrup were both hit singles peaking at the top of the charts. After the success of When the Smoke Clears album, 3 6 Mafia fell apart. Gangsta Boo, Koopstanika and Lord Infamous were all ready to leave the group. Koopstanika became a huge problem for the group. He would often talk about the other members behind their backs. One time he told Master P a bunch of things about Juicy J and other group members. One night, Juicy J seen Master P at a show, and Master P didn't want to shake his hand. He told Juicy J that he doesn't hang out with fake people or rats. Juicy J immediately attacks Koopstanika once Master P left the room. Juicy J even pulled out a gun and wanted to shoot Koopstanika. Koopstanika and Gangsta Boo both left the group after When the Smoke Clears album dropped. They began focusing on their solo careers. Gangsta Boo claimed that she was a born-again Christian, and she also accused Juicy J and DJ Paul of stealing money from her. It was now time to work on Project Pat's second studio, Mr. Don't Play, Everything's Working. Juicy J wanted this album to be huge. He had put in a lot of time on the production for the album. Juicy J knew that the streets was waiting on a new album from Project Pat. Mr. Don't Play Everything's Working was released on February 27, 2001 and peaked at number 4 on the US Billboard 200, 2 on the R&B Hip Hop Albums Billboard, and number 1 on the US Independent Albums. The album was certified gold. Unfortunately, Project Pat couldn't enjoy the album's success. Before the album was released, he was arrested for gun possession and sent back to prison. LaChat was now signed to Hypnotized Minds and working on her debut album. A 21-year-old LaChat was now divorced. She began spending more time with 3 6 Mafia. After appearing on Project Pat's hit single Chicken Heads, LaChat was up next. In October of that year, Murder She Spoke was released but didn't do well in sales. The following month Choices the movie was released straight to VHS. While filming the movie, Juicy J and DJ Paul become close friends with director John Singleton. Singleton loved 3 6 Mafia's music, and he was also a fan of Project Pat. In 2002, 3 6 Mafia began working on their sixth studio album The Unbreakables. This time without Gangsta Boo and Koopstanika. In the summer of 2003, The Unbreakables was released and peaked number 4 on the US Billboard 200. Riding Spinners featuring Houston rapper Lil Flip was the album's main single. While shooting the Riding Spinners music video, Lord Infamous had overdosed on the video set. They called Lord Infamous the Speedball King because he would take so many different drugs at a time. Lean, cocaine, pills and even heroin was all being used by Lord Infamous. Sometimes he would even pass out while driving. In 2004, 3 6 Mafia inked a deal with John Singleton to write original songs for the film Hustle and Flow. While working on music for the Hustle and Flow movie, the group began working on their 8th studio album Most Known Unknown. Lord Infamous was no longer in the group. He started a record label by the name of Black Rain Entertainment. 3 6 Mafia was now down to 3 members. DJ Paul, Juicy J and Crunchy Black. On September 27, 2005, Most Known Unknown was released and opened at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 on the R&B Hip Hop Albums Billboard. The album went gold in only weeks and eventually went platinum. Stay Fly was the album's first single. It peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. Stay Fly was a smash hit. It sold over 2 million copies in the US. It became the group's biggest hit. The song featured Tennessee rappers 8-Ball and MJG and Young Buck. Popping My Collar was the album's next single, and it was just as huge as Stay Fly, selling over 1 million copies. Most Known Unknown became 3 6 Mafia's most successful album. Around this time, Project Pat was released from prison after serving 3 years. His last album Laying the Smackdown was released while he was serving time. According to Juicy J, Project Pat wasn't rapping the same. Juicy J was no longer impressed with Pat's rhymes. In 2006, It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song for the film Hustle and Flow. The song became the second hip-hop song ever to win an Oscar. The first was Eminem's Lose Yourself from the movie 8 Mile. After winning an Oscar award, 3 6 Mafia became twice as huge. They were now superstars. Juicy J was now dating tennis player Serena Williams. Around this time, he himself was dealing with drug addiction. Juicy J became addicted to Xanax pills. Crunchy Black leaves the group immediately after winning the Oscar award. He was ready to focus on his solo career. According to Crunchy Black, he was being treated wrong by Juicy J and DJ Paul. The group was now down to 2 members. Juicy J wanted his brother Project Pat to become an official member of 3 6 Mafia, but Project Pat turned down his offer. Even after being offered millions of dollars, Project Pat still refused to join the group. Juicy J and DJ Paul began bumping heads. Hypnotized Minds was now coming to an end. Juicy J no longer wanted to be a member of 3 6 Mafia and was planning to retire. This was the end of 3 6 Mafia. In 2012, DJ Paul, Lord Infamous, Koopstanika, Gangsta Boo and Crunchy Black all wanted to do another 3 6 Mafia album and even go on tour. At the time, Juicy J was a huge solo artist. His mixtapes were heating up the streets. He refused to do another album with 3 6 Mafia. DJ Paul, Lord Infamous, Koopstanika, Gangsta Boo and Crunchy Black would go on to release the Mafia 6 mixtape 6 Commandments on November 12, 2013. Juicy J signed a deal with Wiz Khalifa's record label Taylor Gang and released his third solo album, Stay Trippy, that same year. The album peaked at number 4 of the US Billboard 200. Bands Make Her Dance featuring 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne was the album's first single. The single was a smash hit and it sold over 1 million copies. Juicy J was the only relevant former 3 6 Mafia member. 3 6 Mafia was now over. Years of heavy drug abuse began catching up with some members. Lord Infamous and Koopstanika both began having strokes and heart attacks. Lord Infamous even claimed that he went to hell one time after having a heart attack.
You had a near-death experience, man. You care to share that with your fans?
Yeah, I'll be glad to share it with you. I take this out. If you ain't got your mind right, your soul right, I suggest put your ass somewhere down and don't get killed. Because hell is real. It's a real fucking place. I know I've been to that motherfucker. And it ain't cool. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie to you. I was a praying motherfucker. The 40 seconds I was dead, I was down in hell, man. I was getting tortured, man. My body turned into metallic element, man. And I could feel these hooks in my flesh, man. These coils was hooked up to this flame. And the coils would heat up, and my body would turn red hot. And my body would actually turn like you stick sword in fire when you make it a sword and they beat it and they turn the steel red hot. That's how my body was doing.
On December 20th, 2013, Lord Infamous died of a drug-induced heart attack in his sleep. He was 40 years old. On October 9th, 2015, Koopstanika died after having a stroke. He was 40 years old also. In the winter of 2021, 3 6 Mafia reunites. DJ Paul, Juicy J, Crunchy Black and Gangsta Boo all came together once again to do a versus battle against their former rivals, Bone Thugs and Harmony. The versus started off good until Busy Bone got upset with 3 6 Mafia members for joking while he was performing. Things quickly got heated. It didn't take the two groups long to make up after a small scuffle. They continued on with the show and it became a classic versus battle. 3 6 Mafia walked away with a victory. But it wouldn't be long before tragedy struck again. On New Year's 2023, 43-year-old Gangsta Boo was found dead on the front porch of her mother's home in Memphis. Her death was revealed as an accidental overdose. Lord Infamous, Koopstanika and Gangsta Boo all died using drugs.
Back when we was 666.
Okay.
And we used to rap about the honeycomb hideout.
Honeycomb hideout.
Yeah, the honeycomb hideout. You know, we did all that. Ouija boards, the stars and everything.
Who brought the Ouija board in there, man?
You know, Paul illustrated everything. You know, we looked up to Paul, and then
Well, this was the 3 6 Mafia story. Thank you all for watching. Stay blessed.